Court of Wayne County is now in session. Judge William Arbor presiding. You may be seated. Come forward.
Before we begin, the court's going to make this announcement. Due to the nature of the case, you likely will see evidence, hear testimony that will anger you, upset you, shock you. Court will not tolerate any outbursts. This is the only warning you will get. If you can't comply with this, you need to leave now. If there are any outbursts, you will be removed immediately. Okay. State ready?
We are, Your Honor. I believe we need the defendant. Okay.
Defense ready?
Court, please, we have a preliminary motion to address the court.
All right, we'll take that up. Let's get away to it.
Yes, sir.
Court, please, Mr. DeHart was arrested on the 13th day of February of this year He was brought before Your Honor on the 15th, last Thursday, at which time our office was appointed. At that time, we had not spoken to Mr. DeHart. Since then, he has more than once expressed the desire to hire counsel and has informed us that he is in the process of doing that. We are asking the court to continue this case for a week or 2 weeks so that he's able to employ counsel. He has a right to a counsel of his choice, just like any person would have the right to hire their own lawyer or their own doctor if they needed medical treatment. The Constitution of the state of Tennessee, as well as that of the United States, affords a defendant a right to the assistance of counsel, and if he can afford it, of counsel of his choice. We have spent several hours trying to prepare this preliminary hearing, and as far as I can say, we believe that we will be able to do a competent job. We're not saying that we aren't prepared, but we are saying that Mr. DeHart has the right to counsel of his choice. As far as I know, this is a case of first impression because I have never in 50 years of practice had this come up to where a person wasn't given, in this county at least 2 weeks to hire a lawyer. In every court I've ever been in front of, including Your Honor numerous times, defendants are usually given a couple of 3 weeks to hire a lawyer. This case is as serious as any case can be. If he's able to hire a lawyer, I will not be surprised if it costs him in the neighborhood of $100,000. I don't know how many of us could come up with that kind of money at short notice if we were required to do that. So we suggest it's not unreasonable. He is in custody. He doesn't have a bond. He's not going anywhere. On top of which, we want to make sure that as the Public Defender's Office wants to make sure he gets a fair trial as possible. As Judge Delosier always said, quoting an authority that I've forgotten, justice not only must be done, it must also be seen to be done. We want to avoid any possibility of a post-conviction relief if he should get convicted. We want to make sure that all the process are properly complied with. He has said that he's able to, he or his family, I'm not sure which, is able to employ a lawyer. He would like to do that, and he would like to have a reasonable time to be able to do that. So with all due deference, we're asking Your Honor to continue this case for a week or two so that he can obtain counsel.
General?
Your Honor, respectfully to Mr. Garner's motion, the state would oppose. I certainly understand the motion and where he's coming from. However, it has been 12 days since the alleged conduct that has brought us in here to court today. 5 of those days, the defendant was out of custody. The defendant and anyone on his behalf who might hire counsel was certainly fully aware during those 5 days out of custody that he was going to need an attorney. He has now been in custody 7 days. The court has given him adequate time to hire an attorney. In fact, attorneys have contacted my office and I believe the Public Defender's Office about this case, and they have either declined to represent the defendant or they have not been able to reach terms with the defendant regarding their representation. So respectfully, he has very adequate counsel, very competent counsel. There are no attorneys in Blount County more experienced than Mr. Garner and Mr. Elrod. They have handled more cases like this than anyone. So respectfully, he has competent counsel. All parties are prepared to go forward. He has been given adequate time by this court, which is all the law requires, to obtain an attorney of his choice. He has failed to do so. He has competent counsel. The state would ask that we move forward at this time.
Mr. Garner, anything else?
No, Your Honor.
The motion to continue is denied. This is docket number CR 56020, State of Tennessee versus Kenneth Wayne DeHart Jr. Count 1, first-degree murder. Count 2, attempted first-degree murder. Count 3, possession of a weapon by a convicted felon. State's ready to call your first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Very briefly beforehand, in regards to count 3, the state has 3 exhibits that it will seek to introduce at this time. First, a certified copy of a Class C felony aggravated assault conviction from 2003. I have previously provided those to defense counsel, Your Honor. We'd ask that be Exhibit 1. Thank you. Secondly, Your Honor, again, a certified copy of a conviction of the Class E felony of reckless endangerment involving a deadly weapon from 2006, Blount County Circuit Court. We'd seek to have entered as Exhibit 2.
Exhibit 2.
And then thirdly, Your Honor, a conviction from 2018 to a charge of aggravated assault, which was pled guilty to the lesser included offense of domestic assault in Blount County Circuit Court in 2018. We seek that as Exhibit 3.
May it please the court, we have been given copies of these documents, and we will stipulate their admissibility for purposes of this hearing, but reserve the right to object to their admission at trial if we get there, if circumstances should arise that way.
Your Honor, with that, the state would call Deputy Shelby Edgars.
Go ahead and have a seat and swear. Raise your right hand. Solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give today is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I see. It's being recorded, so scoot up close. Speak loud. Go ahead.
Good morning. Will you state your name, please?
Shelby Edgars,
And will you spell your last name for the record?
Eggers,
Thank you. And where are you employed?
the Blount County Sheriff's Office,
And what is your current position at the Blount County Sheriff's Office?
the Deputy Sheriff assigned to patrol,
And how long have you been with the Sheriff's Office?
almost 5 years.
Have you held positions with the Sheriff's Office prior to going to patrol?
Yes, sir.
What are those?
I worked in the jail, I worked adult correction
When did you transition from corrections to patrol?
in August of 2022.
And did you have to undergo certain training in order to make that transition to patrol?
Yes, sir.
What was that?
I went through the patrol academy or the post academy.
And how long is that?
It's 13 weeks.
And when did you start that and finish that?
I began it, I believe it was August 15th of 2022. I graduated November 4th of 2022.
And just in general, not specifically, what all does the academy cover?
Essentially everything that you need to be a post-certified police officer in the state of Tennessee.
Now, once you completed the academy, do they just immediately release you on patrol by yourself, or is there additional training involved?
No, sir, I had to go through 14 weeks of field training with a trained field training officer.
And what does that entail, just briefly?
Basic patrol duties, responding to calls, traffic stops, welfare checks, property checks, things of that nature.
And did you successfully complete that?
Yes, sir.
Since getting out on your own patrol and completing that, have you had any additional training that you've undergone regarding, your patrol activities?
Yes, sir, I attend 40 hours of in-service every year. I recently completed a class called ICAT. It's essentially a version of CIT, which is crisis intervention training.
Now, Deputy Edgars, when you're on patrol, just in general, what are your job duties and responsibilities while you're on duty?
I respond to calls for service in my assigned zone or assigned zones. I do regular patrol on the streets, whether that's traffic enforcement, talking to people, things of that nature.
Now, are there different shifts that you all work while on patrol here at the Sheriff's Office?
Yes, sir. So we have a first, second, and third shift. We work 10-hour shifts. First shift is scheduled from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. Evening shift, which is my assigned shift, is scheduled from 3 p.m. to 1 a.m. And night shift comes in at 8 p.m. and stays until 6 a.m.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned zones. What are zones? How does that work with patrol?
So we have 4 zones in Blount County. Blount County is split up basically into 4 quadrants. Zones 1 and 2 are the south end zones of the county, and zones 3 and 4 are the north end zones of the county.
And while you're on patrol, is there a way you all handle backup, or how is backup handled if you need additional officers or assistance while you're on patrol?
So our supervisors make our lineup and they assign us to a specific zone or set of zones. It's different every day. I don't work the same zone every day. We'll have deputies assigned to each zone, and then we'll also have a county backup north, which covers the north end, zones 3 and 4, as I mentioned just earlier, and a county backup south that covers zones 1 and 2, as I mentioned earlier. We also sometimes have county-wide backup, which will be backup for the entire county.
Thank you. And if I could now please direct your attention to Thursday, February the 8th of 2024. Were you on duty on that date?
Yes, sir.
And I assume you were working, as you said, evening shift, second shift?
Yes, sir.
And did you have an assigned zone that day?
Yes, sir. I was assigned to County Zone 3,
And just in general, where is zone 3?
Seymour, Eagleton, Rockford, that area.
Okay. And what was your backup situation on that night, February the 8th?
So with it being a Thursday, we had more people there than normal. Those are training days for our specialty units. So I actually had a partner assigned to Zone 3 with me, Deputy Amanda Fritz. We had a county backup north, and I cannot recall who that was. And then we had 2 county-wide backups who were Deputy Greg McCowan and Deputy Noah Bain.
While you were on duty on February the 8th, did you have reason to conduct a traffic stop on Sevierville Road?
Yes, sir.
And what type of vehicle was it that you stopped?
It was a silver Lexus SUV.
And do you know where on Sevierville Road this traffic stop occurred?
It occurred in the 4900 block in between Keeble Road and Destiny Lane.
And is that located in Blount County, Tennessee?
Yes, sir.
And do you know the approximate time of the traffic stop?
Around 2000 hours or 8 p.m.
8 p.m. And what was it that caused you to stop that vehicle? Did you observe or see anything?
Yes, so I came up behind the vehicle. I first observed the vehicle swerving inside its lane, so it didn't cross the double yellow or the fog line. It was kind of just going back and forth. Then I observed the vehicle go left of center over the double yellow line just a little bit. It did that for a moment, and then I observed the vehicle go all the way left of the center line to where the driver's side front tire was almost touching the white fog line on the opposite side of the road.
And is it that at that time that you activated your emergency lights?
Yes,
Okay. And did the vehicle stop?
yes.
Where is it that it stopped initially?
In the center of its lane on Sevierville Road.
And is that an ideal place for a traffic stop?
Yes, sir.
Why is that?
It's not safe for me or the person I've stopped. We can get rear-ended from behind by a car. I can get hit by a car out talking to them. So it's not an ideal location or safe location to stop.
So what did you do when the vehicle stopped in the middle of the road?
I walked up to the driver's side window and I introduced myself to the driver as Shelby and told him that I worked for the Blount County Sheriff's Office and that I was going to ask him to pull into the driveway, which was just forward and to the left of where he had stopped in the road.
And did he do that initially?
Sort of. He pulled up, but he pulled horizontally across the driveway that I'd asked him to pull into, stopped in the yard, and the vehicle was still partially, it was kind of sitting on the fog line, but my vehicle was still all the way in the roadway.
So what did you do then?
I reapproached the vehicle again, spoke to the driver and asked him to pull into the driveway, which was in front of the driveway that I formerly asked him to pull into, and told him to pull in like he was going to the house.
And did he do so?
Yes,
And that driveway is still located in Blount County, I believe?
yes.
At that point in time, did you approach the vehicle and have a more in-depth conversation with the driver?
Yes.
How many people were in that vehicle?
Just one?
Just one. And the driver of that vehicle, do you know who that was?
Yes. It
Who-
was the defendant, Kenny DeHart.
Could you please identify him here today?
Yes, he's sitting in front of me.
The record reflect the witnesses identified the defendant.
Thank you. What did you do? Did you tell the defendant why you had stopped him?
Yes, sir.
What did you tell him?
I told him, I introduced myself again, and I let him know that I'd stopped him because he was all over the roadway.
All right, now, to be fair, had you ever met the defendant, Mr. DeHart, before this day?
No, sir.
Did you have any prior knowledge whatsoever of the defendant before this interaction?
No, sir.
What did the defendant say in response when you told him why he had been stopped?
He told me that he didn't realize that he had swerved. He had been pulling his hair back, and he may have swerved in that, but he was so sorry he didn't realize that he had swerved.
Okay. Did you ask the defendant for his license, registration, proof of insurance, that sort of thing?
Yes.
And was he able to provide those?
Yes, he was able to retrieve his wallet from the floor and pull his driver's license out of his wallet. We were having a conversation, but he continually was talking. So he was distracted a bit, and it took him a moment to find the vehicle registration.
Did that seem at all at odd to you or indicate anything to you or anything like
I noticed
that?
he was maybe upset or nervous about something because he was continually talking. He did not stop talking from the time that I approached the window to the time that everything happened.
All right. So you took his driver's license, correct?
Yes, sir, and he
Did-
handed me the vehicle registration.
All right. Did you notice anything else or sense anything else at that time that caused you concern?
I observed the odor of marijuana at the driver's side window.
All right. So based on that, you've got his driver's license. Where do you go from there?
I go back to my vehicle so that I can check his driver's license status and see if he has any active warrants in any of our local counties.
And was his license valid?
His license was valid, and he did not have any active warrants.
All right. What do you do while you're in the vehicle at this time?
I made a phone call to Deputy McCowan. We had already spoken back and forth over the radio, and I knew he was on his way to me. I called him on the phone just to give him a little bit more information of what I was dealing with. I let him know that I thought that I had an impaired driver and that I was possibly going to be doing SFSTs or standardized field sobriety tests with the driver.
So from an investigatory purpose, you're going to extend this traffic stop for what reasons, based on your interaction with the defendant?
In order to determine whether the defendant was safe to operate a motor vehicle on a public roadway and to search the vehicle because of the odor.
All right, thank you. Did you eventually return to the vehicle and make contact with the defendant again?
Yes.
Now, how did you approach the vehicle this second time?
The second time I made a passenger side approach, it gave me a bit more of a tactical advantage. My eyebrows were kind of raised based off of his, he seemed to be nervous. So I made a passenger side approach as kind of an element of surprise.
At this point, are you yelling at the defendant or anything like that?
No, sir.
All right. Did you tell the defendant sort of what your plan was from an investigation standpoint?
Yes, sir.
What did you tell him?
I let him know that I needed him to step out of the vehicle in order for me to search it, and I let him know also that I had probable cause to search it due to the odor of marijuana.
And how did he respond to that?
He was not very happy about it. He became more defiant, I guess defensive.
All right. And at this point in time, is he on the phone with anyone that you could tell?
Yes, he was on the phone with, I believe, his grandmother.
All right. And what conversation, did you have conversation with the grandmother?
I did. Originally, the grandmother and I and the defendant talked back and forth about the insurance. He was searching for the proof of insurance and the insurance cards. And she was the owner of the vehicle, so she was reassuring me over the phone that she did have insurance, and she must have just not put the new card in there. So we talked about that, and then I also explained to her why I needed the defendant to step out of the vehicle.
And let me ask you, so was it pretty common for you to have asked Deputy McCowan to join you at this traffic stop? Would that be out of the ordinary at all?
No, typically, anytime a deputy makes a traffic stop, it's not necessarily that we have to ask for backup. We work with each other well enough to know that if somebody makes a traffic stop, somebody is gonna try to back them up. Whoever's closest will come to them just as a measure of caution.
All right. So were you able to convince the defendant to exit the vehicle voluntarily?
No, sir.
Did you continue to request him to do so?
Yes, sir.
And how did that conversation go?
I continued to kind of plead with him and ask him to get out of the vehicle, and I also let him know eventually, after talking to him for a few minutes, that if he did not willingly step out of the vehicle, that I was going to have to forcibly remove him from the vehicle.
Let me ask you this: how big in your mind was the defendant? You know, how would you describe him?
I couldn't tell his height because he was seated in the vehicle, but probably 2 or 3 times my size. He's a bigger guy.
Yeah. Did Deputy McCowan eventually arrive on scene?
Yes.
And where did he park?
He parked his cruiser almost parallel to mine, next to mine.
And how did he approach the vehicle of the defendant where you were talking with him at?
He made a driver's side approach.
All right. And what did you do as Deputy McCowan approach the driver's side?
After the Deputy McCowan began speaking with the defendant, I walked in between the defendant's car and my patrol vehicle and stood next to Deputy McCowan, sort of towards the B panel of the vehicle.
And what is your conversation with the defendant like at this point?
I continually ask him to get out of the vehicle. I tell him this is his last chance. He's gonna have to step out of the vehicle or I'm gonna have to pull him out. And, then we opened the door and I attempted to get his seatbelt off.
So what is your first plan of action regarding removing him from the vehicle?
I plan to go hands-on. If I can use that approach, I like to. So my plan was to put my arm up sort of right about here. I guess it's easy to look this on, right about here so that I could hold him back from folding over the seatbelt and then reach across and unbuckle him to pull him out of the vehicle.
And were you able to successfully do that?
No, sir.
And why not?
He was able to grab a hold of my forearms and we just kind of tussled.
So he fought you off from unbuckling him, basically?
Yes.
All right. So now that the use of hands approach has failed, what is the next approach you all decide to take?
Deputy McCowan draws his taser.
And is there additional conversation with the defendant at this time?
Yes, I informed the defendant that if he did not step out of the vehicle, he was going to be tased.
And how did he respond to that?
He was not going to step out of the vehicle.
All right. And eventually, did you observe that taser being deployed?
Yes.
What happened when the taser was deployed?
So, in the tasers that we carry, we have two sets of probes. Two probes are deployed when the taser is fired. So, Deputy McCowan deployed his taser, two probes were deployed, and Mr. DeHart was able to pull those probes out by the wires.
So it was a bad contact upon initial deployment?
Yes.
All right. What occurred after the bad contact?
As soon as they were pulled out, essentially as soon as Deputy McCowan fired the taser, the probes were pulled out by Mr. DeHart. And then Deputy McCowan fired his second set of probes, and they made a good contact.
All right. And in conjunction with this second set of probes contacting the defendant, was the defendant doing anything?
He locked up like this.
Okay. And so you have a good contact. So the taser is now effective. What is your plan as far as extracting the defendant from the vehicle?
So I still have to remove his seatbelt at some point so that I can pull him out of the vehicle.
So what did you do?
So while the taser was being deployed and he was incapacitated, I forgot to add that I believe Mr. DeHart shut the door after the first bad contact with the taser. The door was shut. When I went in, I still had to get his seatbelt off, get him out, so I opened the door while the taser was being deployed, reached in to grab the seatbelt, and I got wrapped up in the wire, so I got tased as well, and I was fully incapacitated.
So you were feeling the effects of the taser as well as Mr. DeHart?
Yes, sir.
All right. Once, how long does a taser typically go for?
5 seconds.
All right. Once that 5 seconds was up, what did you do?
I stepped away from the vehicle to kind of gather my composure and catch my breath. And Deputy McCowan continued to deal with the defendant.
All right. Did Deputy McCowan eventually reposition himself?
As soon as I stepped back from the vehicle, Deputy McCowan repositioned himself to where he was sort of standing diagonally facing the defendant. His body was sort of next to the driver's side mirror.
And did something occur at that point in time?
Yes,
What was that?
I was shot and so was Deputy McCowan.
Did you see what had happened?
I was on the ground. All I heard was the gunshots. I didn't ever see the gun being pulled out.
All right. Do you know, where were you shot?
In the leg.
And what was going through your mind at this time?
I didn't know where I had been shot in the leg. I just felt pain in my right thigh. I knew it was somewhere in my thigh. I fell to the ground immediately, and everything kind of moved slow motion. I couldn't get myself up, and I thought, I took a breath, and I accepted death, because I thought he was gonna fire at me again. And he had an advantage over me. He could have shot me in the back of the head. I thought he was gonna kill me.
Were you eventually able to get back on your feet?
Yes,
All right. Where was the defendant when you were doing this?
he was still in the driver's side of the vehicle.
Once you got back on your feet, where did you go?
I ran behind Deputy McCowan's car and drew my service weapon.
All right. Is he still the car motionless at this point, or has he started to move?
I believe he had started to move when I was at the back of the vehicle pulling my gun out, and he drove around a tree in the yard and drove through the yard to exit.
All right. And what did you do as he's pulling around? Is he driving back towards you at this point?
He wasn't driving, well, he was driving back towards my direction, but not at me.
Okay.
He was driving back towards Civil River Road, going towards, kind of diagonally towards Civil River Road, and ended up turning right to go back towards Maryville.
What did you do as he was passing you?
I moved up to the front of Deputy McCown's vehicle, so I could have a good vantage point. I fired 3 rounds from my service weapon, and he turned right on the Civil River Road, the way we were facing. He turned right on the Civil River Road, and I still had my gun out, but I knew that I couldn't shoot anymore because I had a line of cars, and I didn't want to get nothing dangerous.
So you fired the 3 as he's heading towards the Seville Road, but chose not to shoot additional rounds because there's other traffic there, basically.
Right.
All right. Deputy, was your cruiser equipped with a dash cam video?
Yes.
And were you likewise equipped with a body-worn camera?
Yes.
And do you know if Deputy McCowan's cruiser was equipped with a dash cam video?
Yes.
And do you know if he was equipped with a body-worn camera?
Yes.
And have you previously reviewed all 4 of those videos?
Yes, sir. I have.
And do those videos fairly and accurately represent the events that occurred that night?
Yes, sir.
Karen, at this time, I'm going to ask to play those videos.